Today we're going to be talking about space, how to show space in art. And I'm not talking about outer space. I'm talking about how to make something look like it's going back. It's further away than something else, that something's coming forward and something else is kind of going back, so that you get this illusion. It's otherwise known as perspective. Everything we're going to be talking about today is known as perspective. And so we're going to start out very simply. The first way to do that, I'm going to mark this as number one. The first way to do that is simply by overlapping. So let's say we have a square, simple little shape. To make it look like there's another square behind it, we can overlap. So I'm going to draw part of this other square back behind it. So now we can tell this one's in the back and this one's in the front just by overlapping. Very simple. Okay, the next thing, number two, is placement. And that means the lower it is on the picture plane, on your piece of paper, the lower it is, the closer it is. So the higher you put it, the further away it looks. Okay, so let's pretend like this is your piece of paper. Okay, and we're going to stick with the whole square idea. So let's say I've got a square here, here. Now notice these are placed the same. They're both, one's not lower than the other, they're about the same. But if I put one up here, already this one's going to look like it's further away than these two. Okay, I'm going to put another one just the same height as these. So these three are the same. That one, by putting it higher, makes it look like it's further away. If I put one that's lower, this one's going to look like it's closer. I'm going to put one more so that these four are the same, but this one's lower, it's closer, this one's higher, it's further away. And just think about, look at the table that you're working on. Look down. Things that are further down are going to be closer to your body. As you move up, those things are going to be further away. Okay, so we've got placement, we've got scale, that's going to be number three, and that just means the bigger you draw it, the closer it is. The smaller you draw it, the further away it's going to look. Okay, and that can just be something as simple as, let's go back to our squares. Maybe I draw one really big and I draw one really little. Now, if you imagine that those two things are really the same size if they were right next to each other, you can see that this one's closer and that one's further away. Okay. And you can combine a lot of these together to really show depth, and that's what we're going to be doing in our next project. But we're not done yet. We've got a few more to go over. Number four is atmospheric perspective. And all that means is the closer it is to you, the clearer it's going to be. If you're coloring or painting, the brighter it's going to be, the more vivid those colors are. But as things get further away, things start to look faded or hazy. They kind of turn gray if you're working with color. You go from the bright colors in the front to kind of a hazy color in the background. And landscapes do that really well. If you're looking really far in the distance and you can see rolling hills, as you go back, those hills in the front might be really bright and green, but as they go back, they start to look kind of grayish. So that's what we're going to do here. This is going to be a very simple landscape. And so I'm going to draw, these are hills. Okay, and I'm just going to leave these really dark lines. I'm going to leave the insides white. So let's say in the distance we have a few more hills back here. I'm going to lighten those lines a little bit. And I'm going to kind of make them a little bit more gray. You lose a lot of contrast as you go back. And then finally, maybe you can just barely see some in the back. And I'm just going to kind of gray that out. So things get less clear. They kind of blur out. That's pretty extreme, but you get the idea. That's atmospheric perspective. Perspective, showing distance and space and using the atmosphere to do it. It's the atmosphere that is causing that effect. Okay, then we have 3 more things to go over for on the next page. Linear perspective is another way of looking at showing space by using lines. And there are 3 different kinds. The first one's going to be 1 point. And what you need to do is start with a horizontal line, just like that. I'm going to label this over here. That is the horizon line. So basically all that's doing is separating the ground from the sky. Okay, so now what we're going to do is on that horizon line, right in the middle, I'm going to put a little point. That's going to be our 1 point for 1 point perspective. And what that means is that lines that are going back into space are all going to converge or come together at this point. So let's say we were going to draw a road. If you look at it, you're standing in the middle of the road and it goes on and on and on and on until you can't see it anymore in the distance. We're going to make this a little bit more complicated and we'll actually turn this into some railroad tracks. It helps to have a straight edge to do this to make sure your lines are straight, but just for the purposes of this, I'm just gonna kind of wing it. So these are going to be railroad tracks. And then I'm going to draw the ties that go underneath them. So the lines that are horizontal stay horizontal. It's the lines that would be vertical that actually will angle towards this point. So these side lines aren't going to go straight up and down anymore. They're going to go as if they continued, they would eventually hit that point. So these are at an angle. Then I'm going to draw the next one behind here. Same thing, the horizontal lines stay horizontal. It's the vertical lines that are going to go towards this point. And, you know, as we go, these are going to get smaller. So this scale gets smaller. Notice as I'm getting further and further away, it's going higher and higher. I'm just going to get to a point where I think I'm just going to draw some little lines. You get the idea, okay? So we've got railroad tracks. Now let's say we had a little building over here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and draw the side that's facing me. You can erase that horizontal line that goes back behind there. Okay, you know, maybe there's a door here. But this other side that goes back in the distance, those sides of the building are going to go towards this point. So is this side. Now right now, if you think about it, it looks like a building that's going so far that I can't see the end of it anymore. I'm going to just cut off my building about right here so that I can erase these guidelines up here. I don't need those anymore. I can erase the horizontal line back in here. So it looks something like this. It's kind of a block of a building, but you get the gist. If there was a window, now this time the vertical lines stay vertical, and it's the horizontal lines of this building that are going to head towards the point, our 1 point. Same thing in the window pane. If it's vertical, it stays vertical. If it's horizontal, it points towards the dot. Okay, what if we had, let's say, telephone poles over here on the side? I'm going to make one really big one, kind of round out the edges. I'm going to make it real simple. Okay, now the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some guidelines from the bottom of the telephone pole to the point, and from the top to the point, and that shows you where to draw the rest of the telephone poles, where to stop and where to start. So remember, it'll get smaller as it goes back, so I'm making my lines a little bit closer together. Now this is going to be a lot of telephone poles. They would not be this close together, but you kind of get the idea. Okay, I don't need the guidelines, so I'm going to erase that. I can just go ahead and loop some wire across there. You get the idea. So this is 1 point perspective. Then we have 2 point perspective. We're going to start with our horizon line again, but this time I'm going to draw 2 points on the very edges. I'm going to put one over here and one over here. And this is if you're looking at the corner of a building and you see one side going off one way and one side going off the other. So bear with me here. We're going to start by drawing the edge of a building, and that's what this line is going to be right here. Okay. Now this time, every time I have a line that is vertical in a building, it's going to stay vertical. It is not going to change. It's all the lines that are horizontal that are going to go back to either one of these points. Okay, so let's just start by drawing some guidelines. I'm going to start at the bottom of that line I just drew, and I'm just going to very lightly draw a line to connect the points over here and on the left side. It kind of looks like a kite. Okay, now those are our guidelines. So I need to cut the sides of the building off, because right now it's as if it goes on and on and on and you can't see the end. I'm just going to start right here, cut that off, cut it off there and there. So now I can erase the horizon line in the middle of my building on both sides. And then on this side I can erase the guidelines over here and then over here. So if you use your imagination, you can kind of see that it is the corner of a building, but we're going to put more details in it so that you can really see it. Let's say this is some kind of a garage. Okay, on this side I'm going to draw something that looks like a garage door. So again, if it's vertical, it stays vertical. All of my vertical lines should be parallel, all going straight up and down. But it's the horizontal lines that change. So this line going across the top, I'm going to try to line up as if it would hit that dot if I continued. So it should look something like this. But it's going to be a garage door that has a lot of joints to it so that it can curl around as you open it. So notice all of these lines that I'm drawing are headed right towards that point. Okay, so there's that side. Maybe on this side we've got a door, maybe over here. Again, vertical lines stay vertical. It's the horizontal line that gets pointed towards either one of the 2 points. So we got a door, maybe a big window. Vertical lines stay vertical. It's the horizontal lines that change on you, and then maybe put some window panes in there. So you get the idea. 2 point perspective. Let's say I wanted to put a sidewalk in, still using these points. So I'm going to go back and draw this line. I'll have this one come out here. Let me do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and you know how sidewalks have, you know, they're made up of squares. You get those little creases going through to make squares. What you would do is here, you follow this line all the way across, and then come out here. See how all of these lines are headed towards that point. And again, if you have a ruler to do this where you can actually line them up, it makes life much easier. And then on this side, the opposite side, I'm going to do the opposite, where all of these lines point towards the right. Okay, so there you go. You've got 1 point perspective, and then you have 2 point perspective, and lastly, we have 3 point perspective. Now, this is if you are up high looking down or down low looking up. It's an extreme angle. You're also looking at the corner. And this one always hurts my brain just a little bit. But this time, just like you probably expect, we're going to start with 3 points. We're going to start out here with the 2, and then I'm going to go try to find the middle and bring it down for the 3rd point. So it's like a triangle. Okay. We're going to start by making a few more points that are going to help you connect these 3 points a little bit more. What I want you to do is right in the middle, I'm going to draw a line, a light line, so that you can see right on this line. I'm going to draw 2 points that are a little bit lower than these two. So maybe one here and here. And then I'm going to come down and put one right above here. Okay, so I started with my 3, and then I have 3 more, 2 that are just under the line here, and then 1 that's just above that dot. Okay, so those are going to be our guidelines. And I think I am going to use a straight edge for this. I'm just going to use a piece of paper so that I can get my line straight. I'm going to connect these 2 lines, or I'm going to connect these 2 dots and create a line here, here, and here. So I took the one all the way over on the right and connected it with those last 3 dots that we drew on that middle line. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here on the left-hand side, going through those same 3 points. Okay. And then what I want you to do is pay attention to this middle shape up here at the top. I'm going to erase this line in between them. We don't need that anymore. We don't need this line anymore. Erase those. You can erase everything around this shape. I'm going to make it a little bit darker so that you can see it. I'm going to erase these lines right around it. Okay, so that you can see. What we're going to do now is take that bottom point and come up through the corners of that shape I just outlined. Okay, so now lining those up there and there. And then I'm going to darken this one line here that I have not erased yet. Okay, so let me show you what we're actually looking at, because I know it's like a lot of lines, what's going on. I'm going to erase what we don't need so that I can try to get you to see what it is you just drew. Okay, so what it is is it's as if you are way up in the air and you are looking down at the corner of a building. This is the corner of the building and this is the top. To show you a little bit more, remember vertical lines are gonna head towards this point down here at the bottom. Horizontal lines are either gonna head towards this point or this point. So these are actually gonna be windows. Do you see how maybe I can squeeze a couple more in there? It's kind of hard because this is a little space. Can you kind of see how these are windows on the side of the building? And it's an extreme view looking down. Let me show you a few examples of these different types of one-point perspective. All right, when looking at this, notice all of these lines start to point in this direction, and over here in this direction. This is an example of one-point perspective. Then we've got this example. This is an example of two-point perspective because you're looking at the corner of several parts of this building. But notice how the right facing side, those lines are all coming over here. All of these right facing sides head over here. And if you're on the left-hand side, they're all these lines are coming together over here on this side, over here. So this is two-point perspective because you're going to 2 points. Then you've got 3-point perspective. Again, see how you're up high looking down at the corner of these buildings. And they use this a lot in comic books. Architects use it for their rendering. A lot of different professions use perspective to show, especially for buildings and man-made items. So this is up top looking down, or it could be, like I said earlier, where you're down low looking up. So you can see you've got points out towards your side and a point up here towards the top.